I am facing a nightmare of knitting, casting on with DPNs! Oh my gosh! No! Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. My name is Carrie. This is where I talk about knitting, my tips, my tricks, my opinions, and my preferences. I don't think I'm the only person who has been intimidated by the prospect of casting on with DPNs. I'm not gonna lie, I never lie to you. Casting on with DPNs is one of the trickier things to do in knitting. If you want to find out how I cast on with DPNs without fear or tears, hit subscribe, hit the notification bell, give this video a thumbs up, and let's cast on. As a reminder, down in the description box will be a list of materials that I used for this video. These will have affiliate links. My mission in life with this channel is to spread the joy of knitting, crafting, fiber arts, etc. And if you use one of my affiliate links when you shop, I may earn a small commission. And this just helps support my channel. If you utilize one of my affiliate links, thank you so much. I so appreciate it. And as always, I will never recommend a product or service that I cannot recommend to my very best friend. Or strangers. Like, I'm not gonna recommend crap to strangers either. I just, like, that's not me. I'm just not. I don't wanna recommend bad things. I don't want people to feel like they wasted their money. I hate that feeling. I hate the feeling of being, like, wasted money and scams. And I'm not gonna do that to another person because that's just a lousy thing to do. I'm babbling. All right, let's get on with the video. Sure, when I first used DPNs, it was because I wanted to knit a pair of fingerless gloves. And the first time I cast it on with DPNs, it was a bleeping nightmare. I mean, it was like, I didn't know what I was doing. I tried to cast on a quarter of my stitches on one needle and then pick up the next needle and cast on the next quarter of stitches and so on and so forth. And it was a tangly, dangly mess that I could barely control. I don't even know how I got through it at the end of the day. I don't remember. I think I blacked out the memory because it was that much of like a crafting trauma. And I think that happens to a lot of knitters. The first time they approach DPNs, just don't get very good advice on how to manage casting on your stitches with them. I will say this was something I struggled with for a very long time until I took my first sock knitting class with Lucy Neatbee. And the way that she showed how to cast on with DPNs was like, oh yes, at last the knitting gods have descended and given me a good answer that I like. So that's what I'm going to show you today. I'm going to show you how I cast on with DPNs. And I'm actually going to be casting on a project that I am working for my February knit along, which is, I will insert a photo here of this glove, the Mira fingerless mitten glove. What's the difference? I don't know. Anyway, so I am going to be casting on with that project today. So this is going to be a real life example of casting on with DPNs. As always, I hope that you watch the entire video, but if you want, I always have timestamps down in the description box so that you can jump around to any part of the video that you'd like to watch, especially if you want to watch it again. Because, you know, sometimes with these tutorials, like, how did that happen again? Or, oh, there was that neat piece of advice, that thing that she threw in randomly. I want to hear that again. So I do have timestamps down in the description box. So first of all, let's take a moment and just talk quickly about DPNs. These are the ones that I am going to be using today. These are the Knitter Pride's Cubics Nova Platina. I'm going to be using a 4-needle setup. So my stitches will get divided evenly between 4 stitches and then I end up knitting with a 5th needle. This is a pretty common modern type of setup, but how I'm going to show you how to cast on can work out with any DPN setup. But I'm going to start by casting on with just 1 needle. What I'm going to basically do is I'm going to cast on all of my stitches onto the first needle. Then I will divide them evenly onto a 2nd needle. And then I will start knitting my first round. And as I knit that round, I will introduce the next 2 needles. So you will see how this works. And Yeah, it's really straightforward, but it's easier to see it done than to explain it. First of all, I'm not going to cast on using the long tail cast on. For this project, I'm going to be using the German twist cast on. I do have a video where I demonstrate the German twist cast on. If you're interested in watching that, I have a link up here and it will be down in the description box as well. But this is one of my favorite cast-ons, and I use it quite frequently for when I need a stretchy but firm cast-on. So I'm going to cast on all of my stitches with my first needle. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 18, 20, 42, 3, and 44. All right. So now I have all of my stitches casted on to this first needle. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide the stitches evenly between needle 1 and needle 2. So you can transfer your needles either from the left end of the double point or from the right end. I like to do it from the right end. And as I do this, I will count my stitches, and this is a way to double check that I have my stitch count correct as I do this. So I'm gonna do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22. I'll count this side to make sure I have this correct. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 21. Is that right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. Okay. Miscounted the first time. If I had the wrong count, I would just kind of hold my needles like this and do another cast on, but I'm fine. Okay, so here's where the magic of this method for casting on is. I have my needle on my left, which is needle number 1, my needle on the right, which is needle number 2. All right, and I need to now join my work in the round. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take my needle, I'm going to take the left needle, and I'm just going to fold it over like this. So now needle 1 and needle 2 are parallel to each other. And what's really nice about having the stitches evenly divided like this between 2 needles is that everything is going to be really stable and things are going to be like twisting around and getting gangling and everything. Like everything will stay nice and stable as we work the first round. So I'm going to pick up now needle number 3 and make sure that tail is well out of the way so I don't accidentally knit with it, because that's happened more times than I cared to recount. Real common problem with knitting in the round is a big gap occurring between the last stitch of the round and the first stitch of the round that get joined together. Now there's lots of ways to avoid that gap occurring. This is my favorite way of doing it. I'm going to slip this first stitch off the needle and not knit it. It will get knitted later, but I'm not going to knit it right now. You'll see how I fix it later. I am casting on for an actual project, and the project that I am casting on for uses a 2x2 ribbing. It works where you do a knit 1, purl 2, knit 2, purl 2, knit 2, purl 2, and then you end with a knit 1. That way the beginning and the end of the round are both a knit. So I'm going to have to purl this stitch right here. So I'm going to just purl this stitch. And I'm going to purl the next stitch because it's a purl to knit to. Then I'm going to bring my yarn to the back. And I'm going to now knit a quarter of my stitches. So I casted on 44 stitches. That means I'm going to now knit 11 stitches onto needle number 3. Purl, purl. Okay, so I have 11 stitches, and you can see I now have a 3 needles here. This is a triangle, and if I were doing a 4 needle setup where my stitches were evenly divided between 3 needles and I worked off with a 4th needle, obviously I would divide my stitches evenly by a third, but I would be done. But I'm not done, I'm doing 4. So I'm going to now introduce needle number 4, knit. And this I can just knit to the end of the needle because these are half of my stitches. Oops, don't fall, don't fall, don't fall, don't fall. Saved it. I hate when I drop my cast on stitch, it so sucks. All right, and that's a purl. So let me just check. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11. That's correct. Notice what I'm not worried about as I do this. I'm not worried about my stitches twisting. And I'm not worried about my stitches twisting is because everything is so stable, the stitches haven't had an opportunity to twist around or do any of that mishigas. And now my needle here is freed up. Hey, Editing Carrie here. Just want to be super clear. The needle I just freed up is actually needle number 2, which I used initially to divide the stitches equally between 2 needles. But since I worked off all of my cast on stitches, it's now available to knit with. And now I'm going to do my next quarter stitches, so another 11 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 9, 10, 11. Now I'm going to introduce my last needle. And I can just knit to the end. Voila! And there I have all of my stitches casted on, and I'm reasonably 99% sure nothing is twisted, but now's the time to check and make sure. So I'm going to have my needles here flat on the surface, and I'm going to just make sure that there's no twist, and there's no twist. Okay. Remember how I slipped that first stitch right here? Notice there's this big long piece of yarn where I joined the work. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to now work this first stitch as if I had dropped a stitch. So I'm going to just take a needle, I'm going to just slip it off the needle as if to knit. I'm going to pick up that strand of yarn onto my needle and then pass the stitch over there and put it back on my first needle. And voila, I have no gap. It's a pretty neat trick if I do say so myself. So there, all of my stitches are casted on, I don't have any gaps, and I'm ready to continue knitting on in the round with my double pointed needles. This technique could not be easier. Now granted, I'm used to working with double pointed needles. If you're not yet comfortable with double pointed needles, you might still feel really awkward about all of these needles. There is definitely a learning curve with them. Everything about them is something that you have to spend some time practicing and getting used to and figuring out almost for yourself and your own knitting style how to manage and arrange the needles. But step number 1 in terms of learning how to work with DPNs is how to cast on with DPNs. This is one method of doing it. This is the method I most enjoy. The reason I like this method is because I don't need to use a straight needle. I don't end up with any gaps at the end once my work is joined in the round. the first round is done, and I continue on my merry way. And I also like this because it is super, super stable, and I don't have to do anything much to make sure I'm not introducing a twist, because the needles are never dangling around in an uncontrolled manner. So that is how I cast on with double pointed needles. What about you? How do you approach it? What tips or tricks may you have? I like to think I know everything, but I don't. I would love to hear from you how you tackled the challenge of casting on with DPNs. Or are you like going, I refuse to even try? Because I respect that. What is your favorite way to knit small circumferences in the round? Because there's more than one way. There's more than one way to do it. Well, that is it for today. I hope you enjoyed today's video and you got some good information out of it. If you did, please make sure to give it a thumbs up and share it with your knitting friends. Liking videos, sharing videos, commenting on videos, hitting subscribe, and the notification bell are all amazing ways to support this channel and let YouTube know that this is a space worth checking out, and then I get recommended to other knitters, and we help spread the joy of knitting and crafting. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that you have a wonderful day, evening, weekend, weeknight, whenever you may be watching this. And as always, happy health and happy knitting. Bye. This is where I talk about knitting, my tips, my tricks, my opinions. Oh, jeez. I gotta figure out a way to put these so I can just easily grab them. I've never loved that piece of advice either. For one thing, there's always a gap down at the bottom of your cast on. Oh, excuse me, burp club. So that's, gosh, gunky. Why am I always so gunky? I'm in a good mood today. By the way, if you're like, Carrie, I really enjoyed the video, I learned so much, well, a couple more video suggestions are going to pop up. If you like to keep on learning or just listening and enjoying, you can select one of those videos and we can keep this party rolling. But if you're like, I have to get on with the rest of my day, totally get it. I'm still here on the YouTubes. You can always come back. And if you hit subscribe, you have one more opportunity. There's a little picture of me in the corner, one of these corners. Click on it, you can subscribe, and then I will show up on your feed whenever I upload a new video or start a live stream. So yes, final plugs. You thought all the plugs were done? No, I managed to sneak in one more. I'm sneaky that way. I'm sneaking. I'm sneaking. I'm sneaking, sneaking, snooker, 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 snooker. Where did snooker come from? Great. Perfect. Done.